Spider-Man Homecoming provides an answer for a theory that had been going around for, by the time it came out, about 80 years. And that was that Peter Parker was in fact the little boy wearing the Iron Man mask at the Stark Expo battle. Alright, so we're about to do obviously the Spider-Man Homecoming Easter eggs and references, and there are quite a few. One of them even relates back to that theory, and sort of very subtly on screen says, yep, that was me. So to begin with, as the Marvel credit is playing, the music is not the traditional Marvel fanfare, but in fact it is the 1960s Spider-Man jingle from the cartoon, the one that was sort of alluded to as well in the Sam Raimi ones, with the Street Buskers playing different versions of it. The first scene, which is set in the aftermath of the Battle of New York from the Avengers, we could get our first look, obviously at our villains, but also at Damage Control. It's kind of good, nice that they were eventually brought in. The Marvel Studios was looking at making a TV show out of it. I don't know if that's still a plan or not, but it is nice to at least see that they did put Damage Control into the MCU, even if it's just in a small way. The next one is after the one shot frame, whatever you want to call it, that makes this movie provide the biggest problem in the MCU to date, with its timeline. We get a shot of the Unisphere from the Stark Expo, and obviously this is the one that subtly references that battle from Iron Man 2, and therefore allows us to go, oh well, there was the theory that that was Peter Parker, and obviously it is now. At his school, there are a whole bunch of shots of famous scientists and stuff. Peter Parker attends Midtown Science High School, so there's a lot of scientists and stuff. On the, I believe it's the front door or something, there's a mural or something, and one side of it has Howard Stark. The other side, I believe, is Abraham Erskine, both of whom obviously worked together to create the Super Soldier project back in the 1940s for World War II, and created Captain America. When we go inside, Peter's locker number is locker 1184, and that number I can't remember how, but it relates to one of the storylines in the comics. From the Secret Wars, there is actually a little storyline within that called Homecoming, and they are between issues 252 and 258, the Secret Wars Homecoming story arc, which I believe is also the first look at Venom that we get as well, which could potentially let us know that Venom will be in the MCU. If it is, I kind of think of the established characters, it will go more or less to Flash instead of to Eddie Brock, not wanting to create a second Venom that fans will then have to try and follow separately from the Sony one. They'll create Agent Venom instead, which is Flash Thompson, and he sort of works with the government, and he'll sign the accords and work for the government and stuff, which would still be pretty cool to see that happen. We then get a look at Liz Allen, who is the love interest in this. She's from the comics, and in the comics she eventually marries Harry Osborn, who again is not in this film. He wasn't in the first Amazing Spider-Man film either, and then they sort of had to introduce him in the second one, and it made him sort of, his motives feel off when he eventually became Green Goblin. It's like, you just got here, why are you upset? We then see a character named Cindy Moon. She's also from the comics. I believe she becomes the superhero Silk, because she gets bitten by the same spider or something along those lines and gets spider powers as well, becomes the superhero Silk. In one of the scenes it has Midtown High since 1962. 1962 is the year that Spider-Man was first created, and so obviously Midtown High was in the first issue as well, so Midtown High has actually been historically in the real world a fictional location since 1962. During the bit where Peter and Ned are staring at Liz as she puts up the homecoming banner, Michelle, Zendaya's character, is reading a book called On Human Bondage. A little bit of tidbit information there. Bruce Banner is among the famous scientists in Peter's science class. If you look up above the wall, the whiteboard, there's a whole heap of famous faces. Einstein's there, Stephen Hawking's there, I'm pretty sure, Marie Curie, and a whole bunch of other ones. I think Nikola Tesla as well, maybe Thomas Edison as well. But the very last one, right over the right side of the lineup, is a picture of Bruce Banner. We then see the MCU's version of Betty Brant, who in this is part of the school news thing, and every time that comes on during the film, they're always really awkward. It's great. But Betty Brant has been in the other films as well, most notably the Sam Raimi trilogy, where she worked in the Daily Bugle with Peter. She was Jonah Jameson's assistant. The actor Martin Starr shows up for the second time in the MCU. His first time was as the weird guy in The Hulk, that sort of waves the fact that he's got pizza. And that scene actually is supposed to be extended for it to make more sense, but they cut it for whatever reason. But he is the teacher in charge of the academic decathlon, and so the little fan theory here is that he graduated from Culver University and got himself a job working at Midtown Science High. Pretty basic one, doesn't take a lot of imagination. One of the boys on the academic decathlon team, his name is, they call him Abe. In the credits you'll find his name is Abraham Brown, and this is important because in the comics Abraham Brown was the civilian identity of the superhero Black Tiger. We then get Stan Lee's cameo when Spider-Man attempts to stop a carjacker, only to find out that it was his actual car, and Stan Lee sticks his head out and tells them don't make him come down there, and then starts having a conversation with some other lady across the way. One of the... I've completely missed the bit. I haven't even put it there. The scene where the Spider-Man fights the robbers, the thieves, wearing the Avengers masks, is actually from the comics as well. And then when he says Thor and Hulk, nice to meet you, that's a reference to the fact that they weren't in Civil War, which is where Spider-Man was introduced in the MCU. Okay, there's a bit after the Stan Lee bit where and I believe it's when May and Peter, like the establishing shot for when May and Peter are having Thai food, and the shop next to it has some Korean lettering. If you are able to translate these letters, the kanji and stuff, into English words, it ends up being the Korean Church of Asgard, which sort of means that, at least in some small way, the Asgardians are again being worshipped as gods on Earth, but could also be a reference to the fact that in the comics, Asgard actually comes and establishes itself on Earth, which I have a little theory in the Thor Ragnarok breakdown that I'll do as to that same thing from the comics. Oh no, there's the Avengers Master Thieves, I have got it. The magic belt that Happy can't pronounce is Megignorn. Now I can't pronounce it. Megingjord. It's the difficult part is that it has a J in that, and it's pronounced like a Y, the same as with Jotuns, which is spelt with a J, and a lot of people look at it and go Jotun, and just anyway. Megingjord is Thor's magic belt. It exists in the comics, and as of this particular second, I cannot remember what it does. But it does do some. I do remember that it's pretty gnarly stuff. We then meet the two characters that will be the Shocker when they're talking to Donald Glover's character. Both those characters end up becoming a version of the Shocker in the movie. And he's also name dropped in the next scene with Michael Keaton's Vulture character, where he's like, I'm the Shocker. I shock things. The gauntlet that they use, there's only one, and a lot of people were like, why is there only one? Shouldn't there be two? Because he has two arms. But if you remember that these people are collecting tech from the end of all of the battles involving the Avengers, it makes sense, because the other one blew up with crossbones in Lagos. But Steve took the other one off and threw it away, and they've just taken it, added some alien tech to it to give it an electric punch, and away we go. The Shocker's Gauntlet. Phineas Mason's here, and he's always building stuff, never actually fighting, but he is a villain from the comics as well. He is the Tinkerer. In the scene where Spider-Man is talking to Donald Glover's character, his name is sort of mentioned, and this is the first time his name is actually mentioned, and his character is therefore revealed to be a particular person. In the comics, that character is the Prowler, and is actually a anti-hero, I believe, of sorts, who sort of sometimes helps Spider-Man do things. And then when he references that he has a nephew in that particular neighborhood, he's referencing Miles Morales, who is a fan favorite Spider-Man character who actually is Spider-Man. The number plate on one of the vehicles is UCS MO1, and I think that's I'm pretty sure it's on Donald Glover's car, the one that he gets webbed to, and I'm pretty sure it references the Ultimate Spider-Man. I can't remember what the C stands for, but the U is Ultimate, and you got the C, and then the S-M is Spider-Man, because it's a hyphen in the middle, number 1. Because Ultimate Spider-Man number 1 is where Miles Morales gets his Spider-Man powers. Principal Morita is played by the same person, the same actor who played Jim Morita in the Captain America First Avenger film. But how is that possible? Well, in one scene where Peter gets called into the principal's office to talk, you can see on his filing cabinet that there is a picture of that exact same actor wearing a military uniform, and it's in black and white, leading us to believe, purely by necessity, that this is Jim Morita's grandson. Or son. Could be Jim Morita's son. There is another number plate, I believe, that says SM2-0563, obviously referencing a Spider-Man comic, and I can't remember what it is. I will find it out and leave it in the description for you guys, because I've got it here, so it's got to be important. I'll leave it in the description, guys. I can't remember what it is. The next one is, there is some graffiti somewhere. I believe it says Bagley, or something like that. And you know what? I can't remember what it is either. I haven't written myself some very comprehensive notes here. I apologize. I do remember all of the next ones though. So Jennifer Connelly is playing the AI Karen, and not only was she Betty Brant in the Eric Bana Hulk movie, but I believe there was something to do with the actual actress and Robert Downey Jr. I think they were married at one point or something, and so it's kind of funny that he creates an AI that has that in it. So I believe it's something like that, like they were dating or something, I can't remember. But Jennifer Connelly is Karen nonetheless. When Karen tells Peter that he should kiss her, he is hanging upside down, referencing the spider kiss from all of the Sam Raimi films where he's hanging upside down and kisses Mary Jane, which is also in the comics as well. When Flash is talking to his date, Betty Brant, on their way into the dance, and he says that Branzino wasn't fresh, that he's referencing the scene from the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with the lizard, where Peter goes over to Gwen Stacy's house for Branzino. The bit where Peter's trapped underneath all the rubble, that is from the Amazing Spider-Man number 33 comic, where he basically lives pretty much exactly this, like it's panel for panel sort of thing. The way he lifts the same looking rubble and everything. And the half mask bit where we see Peter's mask sort of floating in the water and the other half of it is his face, is used in the comics a lot as well, because obviously we, the reader, know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. In the bit where, at the end of this movie, where Tony is showing him the new suit and plans on revealing him as the new member of the Avengers, this references a couple of things, but the bit that I wanted to bring up first is that the shirt he's wearing has been worn by another character in a previous movie, and that character was Pepper Potts, and that movie was Iron Man 3. It's the shirt she's wearing when Tony's having his nightmare, before she says "tinker with that" and walks downstairs. And that's before the mansion's blown up. So that shirt that she was wearing then when she was asleep, Peter's now wearing for whatever reason. It's possible that it's a different shirt with just the exact same design, but it just sort of seems like they were trying to be like, well, where can we use this shirt again? It's got sort of a sciencey design on it. We'll give it to Peter. And then again, he has just come from finding the Vulture, so it could have just been like, this is the only clothes we've got for you. The other things that it references is that suit of armor is the Iron Spider suit. It doesn't look like the way in the comics, but it's the Iron Spider suit. We know this because it's in Avengers Infinity War. And I will talk more about it in that breakdown. It also references the bit where Tony encourages Spider-Man to come out to the world, to the fact that he is Spider-Man in the Civil War comics. Where Spider-Man basically demasks himself in front of all the cameras and says, "I've been Spider-Man since I was 15. In the first post-credits scene, we get an inkling of who the second villain might be, and that is Scorpion, as he is talking to Adrian Toomes about potentially knowing who Spider-Man was, to which Adrian Toomes kind of covers Peter's ass, and I believe this is because he knows that Peter just basically saved his life. He might be in prison, but he also could have been dead if not for Peter. So I believe that's why he covers Peter's back, and says that he doesn't know who Spider-Man is, and that if he did, Spider-Man would already be dead. But Scorpion could potentially be the next villain in the MCU for Spider-Man. And then the very last one is Captain America's public service announcement about patience, where he basically makes fun of all of the people that stay back to watch the end credit scenes. And it's honestly the most fourth wall breaking thing that he's ever done. And sort of, yeah, it's just a funny scene. And that's all I've got. Had a thought and it's gone. It's all good. If you liked that video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave me a comment down below. If I've forgotten anything, and I probably have, please just leave it in the comments so everyone else can hear the references and Easter eggs and stuff that I've forgotten. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I make videos often. I don't really have a schedule. Work and life sort of take priority most times. But that's all I got for today, so keep raising hell. Well, don't I just feel stupid. The SM20563 is referencing Amazing Spider-Man number 2, which was published in May of 1963, 0563 being the date when you put it into numbers, and it was the first appearance of Vulture, and that car is on the Long Island ferry. So I feel stupid for not remembering that. I should have remembered that it was a date and a reference to Vulture.